And we got complete post-game coverage coming up. We're going to hear from all the big players, coaches, and so forth. But, I mean, the Bucks started this game off so well. And then it's the same story from actually the last game where Boston finishing really strong. That fourth quarter, they were dominant.
They were dominant. I mean, 14 of 18 they shot from the field. They shoot 16 of 19. They shoot 84% in the fourth quarter, outscoring 43-28. And defensively, you talked about it. Two things for me was the fact that they were, one, able to make Giannis and Jrue Holiday inefficient. You know, they weren't efficient offensively. And then also, Jason Tatum got going, but Al Horford, he was by far the most impactful player because of what they asked him to do defensively. And then to be able to come up with a 30-piece on the offensive end. That was just an incredible basketball game and one that was needed. If you're Boston, there's no way you could lose that game and really feel like you could win the series. You don't want to go down 3-1 to this team. But there are going to be some changes from Milwaukee's standpoint in terms of how they attack that they're going to have to look at. I just don't feel like they utilize Brook Lopez enough. I think he needs to be a bigger part of their offense, especially without Middleton. It's just not going to work with two guys trying to do it with how well Boston's playing defensively and how poorly Milwaukee's shooting the three ball. But this is all about what Boston was able to do back against the wall. Jaylen Brown picks up his fifth foul on a critical play early in that second half, and yet they were able to withstand that. And Jason Tatum finally looked like the Jason Tatum we've seen all season long from an offensive standpoint. He was much more aggressive. He was attacking at will there down the stretch, and Boston just overwhelmed Milwaukee there in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, I want to ask you about Jason Tatum because he said last game, he goes, I was thinking too much, right? Those doubles were coming. I was thinking too much. I was giving up the ball when I probably should have taken those shots. And in the first half of this game, he wasn't great. The numbers weren't looking good shooting-wise. What changed in that second half?
Well, I think he stayed aggressive, and sometimes you get a bunny. You know, if you remember, they got a live ball turnover, and he got a layup. He got out in transition, gets a dunk. And sometimes all a great player needs is something positive to happen. And then you see him there, he started to get back into his bag. I think he went away in some respects from how he normally plays. I think he was getting caught up in the physicality, and he was trying to overpower guys, and that's really not his game. And I think he got back to relying on his skill, creating space as opposed to trying to just play with force. You know, he doesn't play the game the way Giannis does, but I felt at times he was trying to, and I think that was disrupting his rhythm. So it was good from his perspective to see him get back to playing the game the way he plays it effectively. He is a really skilled scorer. He's not a guy that physically overpowers you, and I think that was critical for him. And they got timely play from everybody. Marcus Smart was incredible at stretches. You know, this is one of those series where a lot of the stuff that is most significant, they're not talking about it statistically. You know, Marcus Smart made a lot of great plays defensively. He was guarding Giannis a lot when they switched on him, and his ability to not be blown by, to force Giannis at times to have to spin, I thought was really, really, really important for Boston. That was a huge win. And, boy, it's been a hell of a series. It really is. And now you wonder, best of three now, the mind games will start. Will we see Chris Middleton moving forward? What adjustments will Milwaukee make offensively? Because I think they do have to tweak some things in terms of how they're attacking. And if you're at Boston looking, you can't expect that Al's going to have another 30-point game. But he's been effective for the most part all series long. I think he's going to continue to play well. If they can get Jaylen Brown going and maybe get something coming off that bench, this could be interesting. I thought it'd go 7, you know, when this thing started. I wasn't sure after the first half tonight, but it's looking like that could be the case here again.
Just seeing Al Horford's performance. I mean, this is a guy, again, goes under the radar when you got guys like Tatum and Brown on this team. That signing is just so big right now. The fact that they kept Al Horford, that veteran presence, a guy who's been through it before. Now, maybe you don't expect 30 from him every night, but what he's giving you, I mean, that is so valuable.
Well, in this series, too, and this is the unique thing about the postseason, because, you know, they didn't have Robert Williams, but this is a tougher series for Robert Williams, you know, because he can't just play center field. You've got to be able to guard an individual, so it takes away his ability to be a help defender, whereas with Al, you know, his ability to, one, stretch the floor. He's an incredible screener. And then defensively that he can guard basically everyone on the front line. I think that's so important. And this is so impressive for him to shoot the way he shot when he's got to extend himself defensively the way he does in this series. You saw in that emphatic finish that he had where he got the and one, you could see emotionally how much. You never see Al Horford react emotionally. And that tells you, that play right there tells you how much it matters, how much he's given thus far these first 4 games. And that was a huge win for the Celtics.
For Milwaukee, what adjustments are they going to make offensively? And you kind of mentioned it. They got to, right? They started Grayson Allen again, maybe getting a little more flow, a guy who can attack the rim. He doesn't really produce that much offensively, 7 points in this game. Giannis is going to get his. We know that. But somebody else has to step. Drew Holiday did not shoot well in this game. You know, Brook Lopez had 17. Maybe you need more from him. But how do you see that, and what kind of adjustments they need?
Well, I think what's there for them a lot is Brook Lopez in the paint. Because of the loading of the defense and the way they have to stack towards Giannis. And you saw a few plays in that fourth quarter where they got him an opportunity at the rim. I think that's something that they're going to have to look at. And Drew Holiday's going to have to play better. You know, 22 shots, took 30 in the game prior, but he hasn't shot it well. And that's a big part. Listen, they are limited offensively in some regards because of not having Middleton. Middleton's really the guy that can go get the tough baskets against the set defense. That's because of his ability to shoot the ball. And then that also creates more space for Giannis. But I think that the passing from Milwaukee wasn't as crisp in this game. I thought Giannis got caught a lot of times where he wasn't making scoring passes. You know, he was making defensive passes, meaning his passes led to an opportunity for Boston to recover on the possession. So that wasn't the case in the first game when they won it, and it wasn't the case in game 3. So that's another area where they're going to have to adjust. But then from a defensive standpoint, listen, I don't care who you are. You're not going to beat anybody if you allow a team to shoot 16 of 19 in the fourth quarter. That's that 84%. You don't shoot that well 5-on-0 at practice. And so that's something that they have to look at. Now, I do think Boston built momentum, and it started right at the top of that fourth quarter. So you then go also look at your rotation. Okay, who's in the first 3 minutes of the fourth quarter? Because that's where they were able to go on that quick 8-0 run to get right back in the game. And then from that moment, they just rode that momentum. It was impressive. Took the crowd out of the game. Took Milwaukee out of transition because they also stopped turning the ball over, which had been an issue for them at times in this series as well. So just an impressive performance. You got to tip your cap to Boston. Again, back against the wall. And you're wondering who's going to step up. We were all saying, look, Jason Tatum's your best. He's got to play well. There was no doubt about it. But to get Al Horford to get the 30-piece and then do it what he did defensively. And then credit Boston, too. Again, I go back to it. Defensively, the fact that they've made Giannis an inefficient player, which is hard to do, and he's still getting a lot of plays at the rim.
All right, so the Celtics winning this one 116. Hey, they could be up 3-1 in this series if you go back to game 3, but it is 2-2 right now. There's a critical win. Let's go to Ime Udoka, who's at the podium.
Opportunities with how they're defending. I think Lopez is a favorable matchup for him because of how far back and drop he is. We know we can get specific shots when we put him in certain